Like most Americans of my generation, I came of age in a country that treated democracy as a self-evident ideal and a source of considerable national pride. Through my father, an English professor who had been raised in a Union household in the oil fields of Oklahoma, and my mother, a college-educated housewife who had been reared by an extended family of observant Lutheran small businessmen in Illinois, I absorbed a number of political pieties that were widely shared in post-war America. I was taught that we were lucky to live in an exceptional society, devoted to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I was taught that I had a duty, my mother believed it was God-given, to make this exceptional society an even better place, in part by exercising my political rights, not only to vote, but also to think for myself and to speak out against perceived injustices. My formative years were spent in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the heart of the Great Plains of the American Midwest, a place filled with church-going compatriots. Both of my parents were politically engaged when I was growing up, though the two sides of the family held divergent political views. My dad and his folks were ardent Democrats, while my mom's extended family members, apart from her, were almost all equally fervent Republicans. In order to ensure tranquil family gatherings, I was taught to avoid talk about politics and religion in polite company, even as I was encouraged to consult my conscience and to draw my own conclusions about what a good society would look like. As I entered adolescence, and inspired by the presidential campaign of 1960, I went door-to-door canvassing for John F. Kennedy in a city that Richard Nixon would carry by a wide margin. With my parents' encouragement, I became a young Democrat. And when a Democrat subsequently became governor of Nebraska, I was invited to give a speech in the governor's mansion about the greatness of Franklin D. Roosevelt. When my family moved to Chicago in the fall of 1962, the city came as a revelation to me. Living in Hyde Park on the South Side, I was, for the first time in my life, surrounded by people of all races and religious views. Attending a high school founded by the great progressive educator John Dewey, I was introduced to some of his philosophical justifications for America's democratic ideals, and also taught about the challenges these ideals faced in a country like Ghana, the topic of a class I took on post-colonial Africa. Among my classmates, there were more avowed socialists than Republicans. For the first time in my life, I knew people for whom radical was a term of approval, not opprobrium. In the spring of 1965, I joined my first political demonstration, organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, a protest against a subcommittee of the House Un-American Activities Committee that was holding hearings at an old federal courthouse on Chicago's North Side. What I most vividly recall is the many officials who were taking photographs of us protesters. In 1965, I went to college in Southern California, and at first I remained an active Democrat, attending a California Democratic Council, CDC, statewide meeting in 1966. But by then, the war in Vietnam had become a subject of fierce controversy, and I ended up at the CDC convention booing, along with many other participants, as that organization's leadership offered only tepid opposition to what seemed to many of us the misguided war policies of Lyndon Johnson. I concluded, doubtless too hastily, that the party system was rigged, even though the California Democratic Party had in fact created, in CDC, one of the most powerful grassroots political organizations in the United States at that time. To my father's chagrin, he considered my newfound political passions puerile, I became an anti-war activist, and in the spring of 1967, I joined Students for a Democratic Society after meeting Carl Davidson, an SDS leader who visited a political sociology class I was taking at the time. He spoke of participatory democracy and the power to make the decisions that affected our lives. Inspired by such talk, I helped organize a local branch of SDS and fancied myself a more ardent proponent of democracy than ever. Democracy, I concluded, wasn't just about voting and maneuvering for power in a hierarchically organized party. It was now about direct action and becoming part of a face-to-face community of peers. In the summer of 1968, I was back home in Chicago, where I ended up joining a chaotic protest at the Democratic Convention that year. I was angry at the growing savagery of the war in Vietnam, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and the transformation of American cities like Chicago into police states, patrolled by military personnel in armored vehicles. I was free, white, and 21, and profoundly disenchanted with what I regarded as a betrayal by establishment liberals of what I had been taught were core democratic and American values.